Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the fourth term of the year, your second term of the second semester, and the ninth week of the semester, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And there's only 4 weeks left. So if you are behind, please make sure you contact us or contact the assistants. Or just catch up with the videos that are online. They're all online. If you're struggling with something, contact us so that we can maybe just clarify it for you. But there's 4 weeks left. There's not a lot of time left, and if you're behind right now, it's just going to get worse in the next 2 or 3 weeks because files are going to build on what we've already done. All right, so some announcements. So a quick announcement about the group project. So there was a query, a few students have asked me if they will be allowed to do videos on the group projects instead of doing audio. The problem with that is I personally don't actually have an issue with videos, but the problem is we need you to upload your content, the video or the audio, to Eve, and you only have 25 megs available, so you can't do a video for that. So we've decided to keep it audio. Remember, the audio is just so you can explain the project to us. It's not to show us your interfaces. It's simply just to explain to us what you have, what you've done, and how you're doing it. So only audio, no video. Please keep in mind that the due date for your project, the group project, is the 12th of October, and that after the project, there will also be a peer review or a peer evaluation. So you'll be evaluating each other, kind of saying how much you think the other person did in terms of a weighting. And if someone didn't do anything, you give them a weighting of 0 and they will get 0. So please just make sure you do that. No. Prac 10 is due on the 5th. Wait. The 5th is a Saturday, guys. It's a Monday. It says the 5th. It should be due on the 12th. When are you writing your computer science? Your computer science is next week, Friday. It's the Monday after your computer science test. So it's due on the 12th. I'll just have a look at the date we said, but it's due on the 12th. That's what we agreed upon beforehand. We'll change it to the 12th. It's supposed to be the 12th. All right. And secondly, please note that only one submission per team will be marked. So only one person in the team must submit the project. If more than one person submits, then only one will be marked and the second one that's in count will be ignored. So please make sure that you only one person within the team must submit the project. If you're unsure if someone submitted, you can just simply send me an email and I check if there's a submission for one of the team members. You're more than welcome to do that. Then if anyone that did not write the first semester test or the sixth test for the first semester test, there will be a second opportunity on, well, it's not a second opportunity, but you'll have an opportunity to write next week, Monday at 9 a.m. You will still have to fill in the Google form and still submit the relevant documentation for why you missed the first and second test. Please make sure that if you did not write, that you do come and write, and then providing a valid reason why. Then the second test is on the 16th of October. It's just around the corner. And the students that have been emailing us with practical queries regarding the marks or the practicals not being marked, please note that there is a Google form. We use the Google form to track the practicals. If you submitted a query to the Google form, it will be looked at. So please don't keep on hounding us. There's other things we're busy with right now, but we get around to looking at those practicals. If you're really that concerned, you can set up a meeting with me and we can look at it individually. All right. Other than those, those are the announcements. Are there any questions before we start with sequential files today? Yes, the first semester tests were moderated. The papers will be released to you. The marked papers themselves will be released to you. It will either be via email or on Eve. Once I've done everybody, I'll let you know how I released it to you. The exam information is in the learning guide, and I have posted the exam timetable on the Discord chat as well, but you can simply go to the UJ website and it is there as well. It is on, if I just quickly go over to Discord here, just want to grab, while I'm looking at it, can someone just give me the exam code for infos? I'll tell you when it is.
27X.
Where did I post it in Discord though?
I don't know. Only one group project, yes. I'll question that as well.
I can't find where I posted it now, but I'll just look at it again. But the exam code, the
127
exam code
is the 9th of November morning session.
Okay. Only Prac 10 and the group project. So there's only Prac 10 and the group project left, and then the practicals for the semester is done. The exam will be online, so that's the second thing I wanted to point out. So if you go onto Ulink, when you join, I just want to see if it pops up again. Okay, when you join or sign into Ulink, you get that little pop-up in the middle of your screen, and it gives you the Vice Chancellor's notifications. If you read this, it says that the semester is still going to be primarily online, except for the subjects that are specified that they need on-campus access. Everything else will remain online for the foreseeable future, for this semester specifically now. So when these notifications pop up, go and read them. Most of the questions you're asking us are information that's released by the university. We get this information at the same time as you get it. So for now, teaching and learning will still be online. So the exam's still going to be conducted online. If it changes, we will let you know, as this specifies as well. If there are any changes, we do communicate them to you directly, as well as via the official channels. All right. So let's get on with today's lecture. So last week, sorry, not last week, the week before last, we discussed file stream objects. We discussed how to create a new file, how to open an existing file, and how to prepare a file so that we can write to it. Note we don't have the means to write to it yet, which is what we'll be doing today. Now, there's one thing I want to point out as well. That could be useful for you in a moment. So with the access methods, you've got read and write, and you've got write only. With read only means you're just reading the content of the file. When you're reading a file, do you think someone else can open that file? You say no, but are you changing the content of that file when you read it? No. So can multiple people read the same file at the same time? Yes. So multiple links can be established if you're reading from the file. But if you are writing to a file, do you think someone can read the file while you are writing? No. Yes, that is correct. So when you're writing to a file, no one will be able to read that file. When you are reading a file, other people can still read the file as well. A file is like a text file, a data file, a batch file. A file is essentially just a storage structure. Because you'll see in the examples that we've got .text, we've got .dat, we've got .info, they're all files. It's the format of the file itself, and you can even have custom file formats as well. So a file is just simply that object that we're looking at, or a collection of objects that we're looking at, depending on how you're going to use it. So the file stream opens up a file. Just the extension itself. You'll probably see that you can change a .text to a .dat, and it won't change how you use it. I can just open up a yeah, it's fine. You guys can see this. So if we put a text file in here, so this is a text file. You can just write random stuff in here. Okay, it's still a text file. You can save that, close that. Should allow me to change this. No. Just change the view here so that we can see the list. I need to open up my folder options. All right. So let's go and change that to .dat. It'll warn you that you're changing it. You'll see that it changes the association. So it doesn't recognize an association. So it's going to ask you to open it with something, but you can still open it up and it will still have the same content inside. It's just the structure of how it's recognized is different now. The content itself doesn't change. Unless you change it to a format which is recognized, but we'll do that during one of the tuts if we really want to expand and explore that. All right. So for today, what we want to start with today is placing objects inside a file. So we want to utilize the stream and then now write or read from a stream so we can, use it. So remember, files do not have any structure in Visual Studios or in Visual Basics. It is what is determined by you when it's set. So we determine our data is stored to a file. We, the developer, determines how data is stored. Not the file itself, not Visual Basics, you as the person that's developing the application. There are different ways to save or read data to or from a file. We'll be looking at 2 ways during the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll be looking at sequentially allocating information. So that is one object after another. And then we'll also be looking at randomly allocating information, and that is at specific locations within a file somewhere. So if you just consider a file, any random file which is currently empty, if you look at the way sequential files store information, it is simply listing one item after the other. So once you put one item in and you put another item in, it's just going to put it after the next item. It's going to continue until you finally close the file itself. Randomly allocated data to a file is basically randomly allocated information to a particular location inside the directory as well, which means you need to know exactly how much data is within one of these allocations, because you need to now determine where that file is stored. So it can be anywhere in that file as long as you know the location of it. Now, random access files we'll discuss in more detail when we get to them next week. But for now, all you need to be focused on is sequentially adding things to a file. Now, as you know, code runs sequentially, which means it runs the top to the bottom, one line after the other. And when we allocate sequential files, it's the same way. It's one line after the other. It's read like that as well, one thing at a time. And then random access is just randomly located in particular locations, but the locations are set, determined by the space of the items being stored or the objects being stored. We'll discuss that when we get to them, but it starts looking at things like database allocations, how you store specific information, and where and how you find them. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail when we get to them. For now, I'm going to focus on sequential. So we'll definitely discuss the benefits because there are advantages, but we're not going to discuss them today. So writing and reading with a binary formatter. Now, this you'll be using for both the sequential and the random access file. But the way we use this today is going to be for sequential access files. So, introducing you to the library required for writing to files, just creating a connection with the physical file is not enough. Now, with the file stream, we've created that physical connection. We've got that temporary, this is the file itself, but now we need a way to read and write to that specific file stream. We need a means to write data to that file. Otherwise, what's the point of having the file in the file stream? This is where the binary formatter library comes in. So we use the binary formatter object to write data and read data from the file. Keep in mind when information is being stored, it's stored in binary, ones and zeros. So the binary formatter provides us a method that allows us to convert our objects to the binary and convert it from binary back into the object that our program will be using. So the binary formatter belongs to the runtime library that is in serialization and then under formatters and then binary. So the same thing with the file stream. You have the system.runtime.serialization formatter.binary, and then you'll use the binary formatter in your code. So you can either call it from or declare it with the full allocation, or you could just import the library itself and just use the binary formatter. We're not going to dictate which one you need to use, but the second one is definitely the preferred method of using it. It's less to type continuously. All right. Now, to instantiate the binary formatter object, you simply invoke the constructor with any or without any parameters inside, as you can see at the bottom. So you declare a variable of binary formatter, BF, as binary formatter. You've got a button that will utilize that, and then you just instantiate the object by calling the constructor with no parameters, just so that you have that binary formatter object. Once instantiated, you can use the binary formatter object to allow you to write and read from a file stream object. Keep in mind that the main purpose is to write and read from the file stream, and the file stream represents our file itself. So files are under form. At this point, the file is within our file stream. It's where we are going to interact with it. So the binary formatter object do this with two methods. You've got serialize and you've got deserialize. Serialize uses the file stream object and data. Now, use to convert objects to a binary and save to a specific file stream object. So what you have here is you're providing the file stream. This is the file you want to save data to, and data is the data you want to save to the file. Serialize allows that data to be converted into a format that the file stream can understand and have that data inside the file stream. So essentially it's a subroutine because there is no return. It's going to execute the function or the subroutine and there's going to be no return from the subroutine unless you do something wrong, and it's going to crash. Deserialize is when we're trying to read from the file stream. So file stream, if you deserialize that, is used to convert binary data from a specified file stream object into the object that you want it to be. But just keep in mind that there is a catch there. We're still working with classes here. That's a function because there's a return. It returns that file stream object back to us. So serialize is when we want to send data to the file stream. Deserialize is if we want to read from the file stream. So basically we want to convert it into a format that we can read. So an example for writing data to a file. So we've got a bit of code here. Please note that there are issues in these codes. So don't just copy them and think they're going to work from the get-go. So the example we have right here is you've got the two imports, your system.io import, and then you've got your system.runtime.serialization.formatters.binary imports. You create a variable for your file stream, which is fs, and your variable for your binary formatter, bf. Now, we normally refer to them as fs and bf so that we know what we're using them for specifically. You can name them anything. You don't have to use these specific variables, but it's nice to know what you're working with. Then we've got a button. What this button does is create a temporary store some item as some class. Now this is a class that we have created. The structure is already there with the instance variable, the property methods, the constructor, and everything is inside of it. Assume that some item of type some class has been instantiated. So assume that you have instantiated these classes already. The information is there, the sizes are there, everything you need to do for input has been done. But now we want to save the information to a file. So we open up the file stream. So we use the file stream that we've created, the variable, and we create an instance of that object. So a new file stream, we look at the file that we want to create, which is myfile.info. So the file mode you'll see is .create, which means that that file most likely does not exist, which means it needs to be created. And then the file access is .write, which means we're going to be writing to this file. So if that file does exist and we use .create, there will be an error message telling us that the file already exists. So that's one way of looking at it, and it's one thing you'll have to check as well. But assuming it will work, we've got file mode.create, create our file, which does not exist at this point, and then we write to this file. Then we open up the binary formatter. We instantiate the binary formatter just with an empty parenthesis, so there's no parameters in that constructor. Then we take our binary formatter .serialize, which means we're writing to the file stream. We provide the file stream we want to write to, and then we provide the item, some item that we want to pass. Now keep in mind, some item is of some class. So some item is a class. It has an entire structure to it. All right, we'll get back to that one in a second as well. Now, if all writing is done, we close the file, which means we take the file stream and we close that. So coming back to a person saying we're lost between the file stream and the binary formatter, the file stream represents the file itself. Remember when we discussed it 2 weeks ago? I just want to go up here. The file stream is essentially your file. It represents the file that you'll find in storage. So all the information will be here. When you declare a new file stream, it is currently empty. There's nothing there. When you provide it with information, if we go back down here, when you provide it with information, you need to say what information you're providing. So we open up a file stream. So we've got the file stream variable. We now open up this file stream. The temporary file that we're creating inside Visual Studios is myfile.info. What it's going to try and do is create this file inside the directory where my executable code will be for this specific application. And it's going to give me access to write to that file once it's been created. So this line specifically creates the file and allows us to write to that file. So this file stream can be used to write to that file. It represents the file. The binary formatter allows us to convert what we want to write to the file into a language that the machine can understand. Remember, what we see in terms of what's on the screen is high level. What the machine uses to talk to itself and to relay information is binaries, ones and zeros. So we need to convert what we have to ones and zeros and then give that to the file or write that to the file. So the binary formatter uses the serialize, and serialize here just means that it's trying to convert it into a language the machine can understand, which is converting it into a binary format. So every time, so for every file we create, we need a binary formatter. Not necessarily. It's only if you're going to convert it into binary to write it. For now, we're just going to use the binary formatter. There are other streams as well, but we're not going to be discussing them today. So if the file was created already, what would be used in the middle? Parameter for writing, would it be file.open? Yes. So if the file already exists, then we would use file mode.open, which means open up the file, which most likely means there's already information inside the file. So the information will be there. Then when you write to the file, it's going to add it to the file. So it's going to add it to the existing data. Now we're going to show you all of this practically in the TUT so that you can see what happens. It's one thing to show you the theory behind it, but we're going to show you it practically as well. So we're going to show you various ways of doing it and what happens when you do it incorrectly as well. So don't worry too much about that. In tomorrow's TUT, we're going to show you all of this code practically and what happens. What is the sum item parameter? Sum item is the temporary instance of a class that we're creating. It's just an example to show what we're writing. If you think in terms of the UJ module examples we've been using, so you've got a UJ module, that's the class, and this would now be either informatics or computer science or business management. So it's essentially one object that you're writing, or even an array of objects that you're writing. All right, so the serialize is a method to convert into binary. It's just simply a translation. So you're translating it into binary. Deserialize is when you convert it from binary into a format that you want to use. So only the sum class code is being saved to the file. It's not the class or the code that's being saved to the file, it's the content of the class. All right, so just hold your questions for a while. Let's just finish this and then we'll go to your questions after this. All right, so that is writing to a file. Reading from a file works slightly differently. So we've got our file stream and our binary formatter is still declared at the top. But now when we use our file stream, if you're reading from a file, it means the file already exists. So we would still give our file name. The file mode now is open and the file access is read because we're going to read from that file, the file stream. Then we've got our binary formatter still with the default constructor, empty parentheses, and then we have this temporary some item of some class, no instantiation required. Keep in mind, instantiation is when the user provides you the information. When we are reading, we're going to use the file stream to put the information back into our class. So we've got some item equals our binary formatter.deserialize our file stream, which means some item, the information for this class, is coming from the file stream. Binary formatter.deserialize, so we're decoding or converting the binary into a format for this class. This reads only one item, close when done, and then close the file or the file stream. Keep in mind that if we're reading from a file stream, it reads one line at a time, one item at a time in the case of serialization. So that's one thing you have to note as well. A file stream in serialization is one thing at a time. Now, if you look at that code, there will be issues. But what are these issues? There are two errors that are present. The first requires you to convert the retrieved item. So if you look at it, it's this specific line of code over here. We've got some item, which is of format some class, and it's deserializing this file stream object into that class. But is this of type some class? No, not yet. You don't know until you've converted. The second cause of an error is your program will crash when you get to this deserialize method. So when we look at this, deserialize is a function. Remember, we've got a return from this function. The return will be the object inside this file stream. The above code says, fetch me a blob of data from the file stream object called file stream. So it's fetching something from that file stream. Until we retrieved it, we don't know what that is. This blob of data is essentially an object of which we don't know what that data type is yet. When we put it into the file, in the first place, it was of some class object. Remember when we wrote to the file, we had it of that type, but when we're reading it from the file, we can't be too sure of it. We want to get it back into a some item object. Otherwise, we cannot work with it. So you want to make sure you're getting it back into the format that it is required. So we must convert the blob back. Keep in mind, deserialize just converts it from binary back into the original object you used to read or to write. But you need to make sure in your code that it is of some item. So you need to make sure that you cast it into the format that you want. So you're taking information from this file stream and you're direct casting it into the class that it should be. So you're making sure it's of some class and giving it to the item. So instead of just having information pulled directly and trying to cast it, this will give you an error. Whereas over here, you're direct casting it into the format that it should be, which means there shouldn't be any issues. But the second error, you'll notice that your program will crash using the code provided in the previous slides because an object needs to be of a custom type in binary. So this is because we attempted to convert an object of a custom type into binary. And when we talk about a custom type, we're talking about the class itself. Remember, we have some class as some class. So for instance, when we did the UJ object, the UJ module, it would be as UJ module. That is a custom type for us. It's a class that we created. To be able to do this, we must first indicate this is permitted. So if we don't want them to write to a file, we just do it as we've done it until now. If you do want to allow a class to be written to a file, it needs to have the tag serializable. This is done using the tag serializable with the bracket in front of a custom type definition. So when you look at a class, this is what we've been doing. So public class, some class, you'll have your attribute, your methods, and your property methods, and you'll end it. And then you'll have private class in your frame, your form, and you'll have a private structure as well. So one for a class and one for a structure. This is how you go to do it up until now. If you want to allow these objects to be written to a file, you need to add the serializable tag in front of the public class or in front of the private structure. Serializable here just means that this class can be converted into binary to be written to a file or to a file stream. All right. Everybody okay with that up until now? All right. I know practically you might still be confused about it, but theoretically, you understand the fact that we've got a file stream that represents the object, a binary formatter which converts the object either to binary or converts it back into a data type that our program understands. With the practical part, it should mostly make sense, but keep in mind we're still going to spend this entire week on serializable or sequential files. So we'll be discussing serialization again tomorrow and on Wednesday and on Thursday. So we're going to discuss it the entire week. It's not just it's now and it's never again. So we're going to go over it at least 2 or 3 more times. All right. I'm just running over time at the moment, so I think we'll pause our discussion over here before we get to the others. So we're going to pause it over here and we'll resume from this on Wednesday. Now tomorrow, what's going to happen in the TUT tomorrow is tomorrow in the TUT, we're going to show you how to use the file stream and we're going to show you how to read and write from a file. We'll most likely be using one of the classes we've already worked with so that you can see that it does in fact work. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. Right. So don't worry too much about this. We're going to be discussing it the entire week. If you are still confused on after Wednesday's practical, after Wednesday's lecture, then you can come and talk to me directly, Discord or wherever, and we can go through it specifically and see where you are struggling. But please make sure you come to the TUT, because in the TUT we're going to code out the file stream. While we're coding it out, we'll still be discussing what is the file stream, how to use it. We're going to show you the various options, and we're going to show you what happens if you use it incorrectly. So we're going to intentionally break the code so that you can see what happens if you use it incorrectly. And then we're going to show you the binary formatter as well. We're going to show you how it works. We're going to break it as well so that you can see what happens when it breaks. So please make sure you come to the TUT tomorrow because this will make a lot more sense once you've seen that. All right. We're also going to briefly discuss enumerations during the TUT tomorrow. Yes, there's still 2 TUTs, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. It's essentially going to be the same TUT, one just presented by Mr. Cottrell and one presented by me, as we've been doing up until now. All right. Okay, guys. So we'll see you tomorrow. I'll still stick around if you want to ask more questions, but I'm going to pause the discussion on serializable here until we get halfway to another concept or another example. So for now, you know the two errors that will persist if you use the code before this, what causes that and why it is caused, but we'll show you practically how to use this tag tomorrow in the class. The slides after this point basically just shows you how to use it and what it's used for. All right. And then it also uses a constant, but you don't have to worry too much about that right now. All right, guys, I'm going to stop the recording here. If you want to ask more questions, you can. I'll gladly answer them. And then we'll see you tomorrow during the TUT. And please make sure you attend your lecture again on Wednesday. We're going to go through these concepts again on Wednesday. Once you've done it at least one or twice, practically and theoretically, you should be in a comfortable state. I'm not going to say in a perfect state, but you should be comfortable with the concept by then. But you need to practice it. If you don't practice it, if you don't come to the tutorial, if you don't attempt this practical, you're still going to struggle with it. And please note that your second semester test will be on sequential files. So you need to be able to do this practically. Right. I hope that was a good start to your Monday after the recess. You guys are working on your group project and that you guys are working on Prac 10. Prac 10 is essentially a past paper. Just without, no, it's a past paper. I don't think we've modified it at all. It's purely a past paper. All right. So you've actually done about 2 past papers by now. You just don't realize it. But we'll discuss it in a bit more detail tomorrow. And if you are struggling, please make sure you attend the practical, the tutorials. But you need to attend at least one of the tutorials. It is technically mandatory. You said Prac 10 is due on the 5th? No. Prac 10 is due on Friday. Mr. Cottrell, if you can just confirm that. Yes, Prac 10 is due on Friday. The group practical is due on the 12th. We'll just make sure that the date is correct, but the group project is due on the 12th of October.
I've updated the group and the submission for the group project.
Okay. Right, so the group project is due on the 12th. Prac 10 is due on Friday, the 2nd. Okay, guys, I'll see you tomorrow.